Good afternoon, folks. This is Aaron DeBruin, Vinyl Freak 89, here to give you an update on the situation, both what's occurring now for March 5th, and we're going to look ahead to our possible storm for March 8th. Can see the cutoff low sitting in here. That forecast played out nicely, with the trough staying positively tilted longer, and therefore this thing's going to take a little bit further east track, something like this. And it's going to give areas in the Mid-Atlantic and southern New England quite a bit of rain, but northern New England and northern Maine, upstate New York, and so forth could see quite a bit of sleet and snow with this as we progress on through today and tomorrow. So let's go ahead and start to look forward. Moving on, again, this is the 12Z GFS. We're going to just go through it, highlight some of its problems, errors. Moving on to 18Z today, can see our cutoff low moving up. 0Z continues. Can see here's what happens. I'm gonna back up for a second. Looks like it's gonna lift out like this, right? Now watch what happens, because it stayed connected with this piece of energy sitting in here longer, which slowed it down, created sort of a mini, not really a block, but a little bit of a ridge in between the two systems. It has to move east, so it moves east, then it moves up, and here comes our next system down the pike. I'll back up a little bit. A piece of energy sitting in here, a piece of that's going to split off and run out front, which is actually good, because what that's going to allow to do is it's going to set high pressure in place, weak high, but it's going to set the cold air in place down the coast before our storm gets here. So moving forward, once again, we can see here's the system sitting right in here. Again, you can see that piece beginning to split off, but here's the main energy that's diving into the southwest. Can see it's going to phase with a piece of this this polar vortex lobe sitting in here, and that's going to create our big storm that's going to track out of the Gulf of Mexico and take a track. Probably this is middle of track in here. Can do anything from this to maybe even this. So it's really uncertain now as to where this low is going to track, but there is going to be a low originating in the Gulf of Mexico and taking a track somewhere along the east coast. Now the factors as to where exactly are based on what the GFS shows. So we're going to step ahead for a minute, and you can see here comes this low slowing down. What we want to see is to see the big storm along the east coast. This speeds up even quicker. It comes part of this this system sitting in here, which tries to become a 50-50 low, although a weak one, builds the ridge sitting out front, and so we can really slow this system down, allow, you can see, a weak piece of northern branch energy to phase in, but mainly to allow this big polar vortex lobe to phase in, as we had seen on the European model. Stepping on continually, or to Thursday evening, and once we get on to Friday evening, you can see this is one of the main problems here. Here comes the piece of energy in the southwest that ran out front. Here comes, again, we'll back up a little bit so I can show you where this piece of energy evolves from. You can't see it very well, but it does sort of dip down. And here comes the energy from the polar vortex sort of phasing together. Now, why? Again, we're seeing a very strung out system. Here comes the front runner out front, not sitting back here, not completely phased in. If we had this piece back here, we'd be seeing a cutoff low starting to form in here and taking a track something like this. That is the ultimate solution that we want to see. We do want to see this piece hang back a little bit. But as we can see, the GFS does run out in front, which may or may not be correct. So what do we end up with? We end up with an overall positively tilted trough coming to the coast, very progressive, and you have a weak storm that comes up and out along the coast. No big storm, no big situation with a lot of rain. And also, here's another factor. We have some of this southwest energy. Again, if some of that can get entrained into the system rather than splitting off here, that can create a possibly bigger system. This is definitely a Miller A, and it is something we need to keep our eye on. So we go through time, we can see it progressing up, and once we're on to Sunday, nothing's really happening. So let's take a look now at the surface interpretation of this, and we'll highlight some key players. Taking a look at the surface map in here, let's give it a second to load. Okay, we got it. So here's what we look like initially. Big low pressure system sitting in the Ohio Valley. High high, Bermuda high off the coast, and so southerly winds pretty much up along the entire East Coast, giving us some nice 60-plus weather in DC and probably even up toward New York City. Whoops. So as we go on through time, we can see here comes our low, tracking up, blah, 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 big deal. So here's the front runner out front. Here's the weak clipper type system out front with this system. Remember, that's the piece of energy that split off and came in here. So we're to 12Z, 7 a.m. Thursday. Continue to go. Here's the big deal. Remember how we had that piece run out front? That's going to build way for this high to come in, but look at this. Very nice high sitting in here. Definitely going to provide us with more than enough cold air for the system. So now we're into 6E Friday, and you can see that high pressure, both of them. You get the high centered over Pennsylvania. You get the high sitting back here. You start to see it's trying to take on that that banana shape a little bit, not the classic one. It's a little more bulged, but it is definitely that high pressure system you're looking for. If you can get this to get out of the way a little quicker, then that can create maybe even a bit of a stronger high over toward New England. So what do we see? We start to see overrunning precipitation breaking out, but again, notice the look that this thing wants to go out, because why? It's a very progressive looking system as per the latest GFS. But you can see it does move up along the coast, and areas just west of 95 get pounded with a pretty good snowstorm. The Appalachians do well as per this GFS run, but again, let's assume for a second that we have less energy sitting out front with the front runner, more back in here, more phased. We get a bigger storm solution like the European shows. Now, well, let's go ahead and take a look at that. The European is the epitome of what can happen with this storm with a more phased solution. So, going to bring up the Euro here in just a second. I'm sure you guys are going to probably like to see this map. Well, no, I'm going to just go over the Euro for a second and say it's not the best solution per se, because we don't have... it doesn't take the track that we necessarily want, but it does take the it does show the intensity with the phasing that we definitely would want to see. So let's go ahead and bring up the Euro here. Let's start at 72. Alright, we got the Euro up. So here you go. 72-hour Euro. Can see low developing in the Gulf. Notice, sharper trough in here. It's phasing in a little bit more of this southern branch energy. So what happens? The thing continues along, and this is actually a little bit two-phase. So when we go out to 96, you can see here comes deep trough. This is really, it's negative tilt. Little bit of energy hanging back in the southwest, but not much to cause any of a problem. But what happens? This thing phases too early, and up comes the storm, up way to the east, going out to 102. You can see, whoops, not 102, 108. Looking out to 108, you can see sitting in here. So what you get a big storm up west of the Appalachians. Now, imagine if we had this scenario with this whole thing shifting east 500 miles. What has to happen? Well, just a later phase. This early in the game, looking 108 hours out, that's certainly not out of the realm of possibility to imagine that the Euro, or that the models could shift to a solution looking like that. So, we'll have to see what happens. It's still very early in the game, but needless to say, we are looking at a very interesting situation coming up for March 8th, 2008. For Eastern U.S. weather, I'm Aaron DeBruin, Final Freak 89, and you folks have a great afternoon.